From revolutionary prototypes to near-orbital flights, SpaceX's Starship program has evolved at a pace that's reshaping the aerospace industry. What began as a months-long process between launches has transformed into an impressive 43-day turnaround between Flight 6 and Flight 7. It's been 40 days since Flight 7 blasted off, and the world has been watching with anticipation as SpaceX prepares for Flight 8. This upcoming mission will showcase Ship 34 paired with Booster 15, both having passed rigorous testing protocols. On February 9, 2025, Booster 15 completed a full-duration static fire test at Orbital Launch Pad A, with all 33 Raptor engines roaring to life simultaneously. Just 2 days later, Ship 34 conducted its own 58-second static fire test at the Massey test site, simulating various flight scenarios to gather crucial data for potential hardware and flight profile improvements. While February 26th was initially targeted for liftoff, SpaceX has pushed the launch to February 28, 2025. This postponement isn't merely a setback, it's a calculated decision allowing for additional preparation time and securing the necessary FAA launch license. After all, when you're launching the world's largest operational rocket, every detail matters. The flight plan for Starship's 8th mission follows a familiar trajectory. After launching from Starbase in South Texas, Booster 15 will attempt something extraordinary, returning to the launch site for a precision landing using the Mechazilla catching mechanism built into the launch tower. Meanwhile, the Starship upper stage will reach near-orbital velocities before executing a controlled descent and splashdown in the Indian Ocean. What makes Flight 8 particularly significant is the planned deployment of 4 simulated Starlink satellites, a critical step toward proving Starship's payload delivery capabilities. But why the delay? The answer lies in the dramatic failure of Flight 7 on January 16, 2025. Welcome to Elon Musk 24 Hours. Let's dive right in. Flight 7's failure on January 16, 2025 wasn't just a setback for SpaceX. It was an event that sent shockwaves across the entire aerospace industry. The mission started promisingly. Ship 33, the first Block 2 Starship, paired with Super Heavy Booster 14, thundered off the launch pad at Boca Chica. For the first few minutes, everything appeared nominal. Then came the milestone many had been waiting for. Booster 14 executed its return maneuver flawlessly, caught by the Mechazilla catching arms in a ballet of precision engineering. This achievement alone would have been enough to declare the mission a success, demonstrating SpaceX's mastery of reusable rocket technology. But 8.5 minutes into the flight, disaster struck. What viewers at home saw as a brief camera glitch was actually the beginning of a catastrophic failure. The first engine shutdown occurred at T+7 minutes, followed by a cascade of failures around T+8 minutes. Telemetry went dark at T+8 minutes and 26 seconds, just 27 seconds before planned engine cutoff. When Ship 33 was cruising at an altitude of 146 kilometers, the aftermath was dramatic. Ship 33 disintegrated over the Turks and Caicos Islands, sending debris raining down across the archipelago. Local residents reported hearing what sounded like sonic booms, with ground tremors comparable to a small earthquake. The explosion wasn't just a SpaceX problem, it became an international incident. The ripple effect beyond just a rocket explosion. The FAA's response was swift and uncompromising. All Starship operations were immediately grounded. The regulatory body, which had already been watching SpaceX's rapid development pace with cautious eyes, needed answers before allowing another launch. The explosion's impact extended far beyond SpaceX's launch schedule. More than 240 commercial flights were diverted due to emergency airspace restrictions over the affected areas. Airlines lost millions in fuel costs and compensation claims. Tourists stranded in the Caribbean took to social media, creating a PR nightmare that even SpaceX's accomplished communications team struggled to manage. A joint investigation team was quickly assembled, bringing together experts from SpaceX, FAA, NASA, the National Transportation Safety Board, and the U.S. Space Force. Their mission? Determine exactly what went wrong and ensure it never happens again. The technical detective work, unraveling the failure. The investigation's early findings revealed a complex chain of events that led to the explosion. During ascent, Ship 33 experienced extreme vibrations. Not unusual for a rocket of this size, but in this case, they proved fatal. The vibrations put excessive stress on the propulsion system, creating a propellant leak above the ship's engine firewall. This wasn't just any leak. Oxygen and fuel mixing in an enclosed space is essentially a bomb waiting for a trigger. As the volatile mixture built up, it created pressure beyond what the venting systems could handle. When Elon Musk later addressed the failure in a candid engineering meeting with his team, he described it as a pressure cooker with no release valve. The fires that ignited spread rapidly within the spacecraft's engine compartment, triggering multiple engine shutdowns in sequence. With each engine that failed, the remaining ones were forced to compensate, creating even more stress on the system. It was a textbook example of a cascading failure, each problem creating new ones until the entire system collapsed. SpaceX's rapid response, redesigning on the fly. In response to these findings, SpaceX engineers worked around the clock to implement critical changes to prevent similar failures in future flights. Their modifications were extensive and targeted. First, they completely redesigned the leak detection systems, installing high-sensitivity sensors capable of identifying even microscopic propellant escapes in real time. These sensors now feed directly into an automated emergency response system that can trigger countermeasures before a situation becomes critical. Second, they installed advanced fire suppression mechanisms within the engine compartments, a system similar to those used in Formula One race cars, but scaled up for aerospace applications. If sensors detect even a hint of combustion where none should exist, the system floods the area with fire-retardant material within milliseconds. Third, the structural components were reinforced to better withstand vibrational stress. Engineers analyzed the resonant frequencies that had caused the most damage during Flight 7 and redesigned support structures to dampen those specific vibrations. Third, the structural components were reinforced to better withstand vibrational stress. Engineers analyzed the resonant frequencies that had caused the most damage during Flight 7 and redesigned support structures to dampen those specific vibrations. Perhaps most importantly, they completely overhauled the venting system to prevent pressure buildup. The new design includes redundant pathways for excess pressure to escape safely, even if the primary system fails. SpaceX engineers call it the foolproof venting solution because it requires no computer intervention. It works purely on mechanical principles, making it virtually impossible to fail completely. These modifications weren't just band-aids, they represented fundamental improvements to the Starship design philosophy. Each change was extensively tested in controlled environments before being incorporated into Ship 34 and Booster 15. The stakes for Flight 8: more than just another launch. As SpaceX prepares for Flight 8, the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't merely about getting back on schedule. It's about proving that the Starship program remains viable for its ambitious goals, including NASA's Artemis missions and Musk's dreams of Mars colonization. The planned deployment of 4 simulated Starlink satellites during Flight 8 is particularly significant. It demonstrates that despite the setback, SpaceX remains committed to Starship's commercial applications. These simulated satellites will test the deployment mechanisms that will eventually place hundreds of real Starlinks into orbit with each launch, potentially revolutionizing global internet coverage. Industry analysts estimate that if successful, this capability could reduce Starlink deployment costs by up to 90% compared to Falcon 9 launches. The economics are straightforward. A single Starship could deploy more satellites in one mission than 10 Falcon 9 rockets, at a fraction of the cost per satellite. Meanwhile, at NASA, the SLS crisis. While SpaceX works to overcome its Starship challenges, NASA faces a crisis with its own Space Launch System, SLS. After more than a decade in development and over $50 billion spent, the SLS program stands at a crossroads. Originally estimated to cost around $1.8 billion per launch, recent assessments put the actual figure closer to $4.1 billion, a staggering amount for a rocket that's only partially reusable. NASA's own auditors delivered a damning verdict in 2023, declaring the program economically unsustainable in the long term. The contrast with SpaceX's approach couldn't be more stark. While an SLS launch costs taxpayers billions, Musk has stated that the target cost for a Starship launch, once fully operational, could be as low as $10 million, less than 0.25% of an SLS launch. Even accounting for Musk's characteristic optimism, the difference in economic efficiency is orders of magnitude. This disparity hasn't gone unnoticed in Washington. President Trump's administration has ordered a comprehensive review of all major space program expenditures, with particular focus on the Artemis program and its dependence on SLS. Industry insiders report that serious discussions are underway about potentially canceling SLS in favor of commercial alternatives. The political battleground, jobs versus efficiency. The potential cancellation of SLS has ignited a fierce political battle. The program directly supports approximately 28,000 jobs, concentrated primarily in states like Alabama and Texas. Senators Tommy Tuberville and Brian Babin have become vocal champions of the program, framing it as essential to national security and America's competition with China's rapidly advancing space program. In closed-door meetings, these politicians have argued that the SLS represents more than just a rocket. It's a repository of aerospace expertise that, once disbanded, cannot be easily reassembled. They point to the history of the Saturn V program, which, after being discontinued, led to the loss of crucial institutional knowledge and capabilities. Yet economic realities cannot be ignored forever. Boeing, the primary contractor for SLS, appears to be reading the writing on the wall. In early February 2025, company executives informed employees working on the SLS program that their assignments might end when the current contract expires in March. This unprecedented move suggests that even Boeing sees the potential for program cancellation as real enough to begin contingency planning. The future of space, commercial versus traditional approaches. As SpaceX prepares for Flight 8 against this backdrop of uncertainty in the broader space industry, a fundamental question emerges. Is the traditional approach to space exploration, exemplified by NASA's SLS program, still viable in an era of rapidly advancing commercial capabilities? SpaceX's iterative development approach, building quickly, testing aggressively, failing occasionally but learning constantly, stands in sharp contrast to the methodical, risk-averse strategy employed by NASA and its traditional contractors. While SpaceX has suffered setbacks like the Flight 7 explosion, its overall progress has been remarkably swift. In less than 5 years, Starship has evolved from crude prototypes to a vehicle capable of near-orbital flights. This success hasn't gone unnoticed within NASA itself. Several senior officials have privately acknowledged that the agency's future may lie in leveraging commercial capabilities rather than developing its own launch systems. One NASA insider, speaking on condition of anonymity, revealed that contingency plans are already being developed for how Artemis missions could proceed using Starship exclusively without SLS. The road to Flight 8, final preparations. As the February 28th launch date approaches, final preparations for Flight 8 are intensifying. At Starbase, engineers are conducting last-minute inspections of Ship 34 and Booster 15. Every system is being checked and rechecked, with particular attention to the modifications made in response to the Flight 7 failure. The FAA has been closely involved throughout the preparation process, with inspectors on-site daily to monitor compliance with safety regulations. Their final authorization is expected just 24 hours before the scheduled launch, a timeline that reflects both the agency's caution and the improved relationship that has developed between SpaceX and regulators over recent months. Weather conditions for the planned launch window look promising, with forecasts predicting clear skies and moderate winds. Ideal conditions for both the launch itself and the critical booster recovery attempt. Should weather conditions deteriorate, SpaceX has backup launch windows on March 1st and 2nd. Global interest in this launch is unprecedented, with live stream viewership expected to exceed 10 million concurrent viewers, potentially setting a new record for a space industry event. The stakes, the drama of the previous failure, and the broader implications for the future of space exploration have combined to create what one commentator has called the most anticipated rocket launch since Apollo 11. For SpaceX and Elon Musk, Flight 8 represents more than just another step in Starship's development. It's a defining moment that could determine the trajectory of human spaceflight for decades to come. Success would vindicate their approach and potentially accelerate the timeline for ambitious missions to the Moon and Mars. Failure would raise serious questions about the viability of the entire program. As we approach the critical February 28th launch date, Flight 8 represents a pivotal moment in the modern space race. We're witnessing a historic shift in how humanity approaches space exploration, from the cautious, methodical government programs of yesterday to the rapid, iterative approach pioneered by SpaceX. The contrast couldn't be clearer. While NASA's SLS faces an uncertain future after consuming $50 billion and delivering just one test flight, SpaceX continues to push boundaries at a fraction of the cost. This isn't just about rockets. It's about two fundamentally different philosophies colliding in real time. Whatever happens with Flight 8, one thing is certain. The landscape of space exploration is changing forever. Whether Starship succeeds or fails, the commercial approach to space has proven its value. The question is no longer if private companies will lead us to the stars, but when and how quickly. Will SpaceX overcome the challenges revealed by Flight 7? Can NASA adapt to the new realities of commercial spaceflight? And what does this mean for humanity's future among the stars? These questions will begin to be answered when Starship Flight 8 lifts off. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of SpaceX and the future of space exploration, make sure to hit that like button and share this video with fellow space enthusiasts. Drop your predictions for Flight 8 in the comments below. Will the booster landing be successful? Will all 4 simulated Starlink satellites deploy correctly? Subscribe to Elon Musk 24 hours for more breaking coverage of SpaceX developments and all things related to the visionary changing our world. Hit the notification bell to be first to know when Flight 8 launches. Until next time, keep looking up.